Do you ever feel like you're fundraising all by yourself? Fundraising requires a team, and your team is your board. So if you're feeling discouraged, maybe they're not engaged, well, listen up, because today we're going to talk to Janis Petrini. She's a close friend of mine. She's on a ton of boards, and she's going to share what it's like from her perspective. This is Joanna Hogan with Inspire Generosity.
I joined the board, but it was not a welcoming experience. I just felt like I was in a mismatch.
So how much of that was the fact that you were the only woman? Everybody seems to be learning kind of
by fire?
Yes. It's awful. This podcast is sponsored by the Dreams Retreat. Now, this is not ordinary training. Ordinary training is tactical and patchwork at best. To inspire generosity, you need training that is simple, that's sequential, and that's what this is. It's exactly what I wish I would have had when I first got my start. If you'd like to learn more, go to inspire-generosity.com. We've talked quite a bit about fundraising and how board members are often expected to assist in that area. Of course, it's part of the responsibility. Can you tell me a time when a board member wanted to help, but we accidentally kind of set them up to fail?
Sure. I think on the fundraising end, I think it's an expectation of any board member, certainly knowing that they'll be required and want to give to the organization. And so I think that's always understood. But when it comes to real fundraising, I think oftentimes we're asked to do it, but then we're not really equipped to do it. So it's sort of, well, go and do it, but there's really not training or really an understanding about how to be effective to do that. And so oftentimes, board members will wing it or they'll try their best. But I've been on several capital campaigns even, and just the expectation of, we're going to raise, $15 million. And so go for it. and so I think oftentimes it's just not, we're really not set up well. And so I think there's a lot of board members that have a desire to do that well, but oftentimes we just need to be better equipped, especially, I think it's natural for us to want to give to the organization, but then asking others for funds is you want to have some confidence to be able to do that.
Sometimes I've asked board members, if you were having the best experience possible, this was the board that you signed up to be on, and it was the best experience you could possibly have, what would that look like? And when I've asked that question before, I often get like a deer in the headlights look, and they say, never been asked that question before. But it's something I'm always curious about. If someone signed up, what was their expectation? And then was their board experience as they expected or not? So I want to ask you, if you had the most ideal board experience, and you were given the kind of training that you're saying is needed, what would that look like?
Well, I definitely think there's just so many levels and dimensions to that. I think, first of all, to have, number one, you're passionate about the organization. So you have a desire to really give back and help and volunteer and engage. I think that's a given for any board member. I think then having a really good onboarding experience to the board. I think sometimes that's a missing link, is that all of a sudden you're a board member and you're showing up to a meeting. And so I think a really great board experience would be you have a wonderful onboarding experience. So you're welcomed into the organization, you learn about the organization, you're really getting a great introduction to things that maybe you wouldn't have known otherwise. You're meeting the team. You're understanding what everybody's, not that you're going to be doing the job of anybody, but you're just understanding what their role is, why they're passionate about the organization. So you have sort of this insider look into, what happens on a day-to-day basis and just what some of the team members' heart is. And then I think every board member has a different desire. Some board members really want to volunteer at events, or some board members want to get involved in committees, or some board members want to get involved in different entry points. But I think there's enough of those where you can sort of see, where can I fit? But my most desirable, I think, board member experience is, number one, understanding the ins and outs of the organization, having a great onboarding experience, being able to choose a committee that maybe I want to really serve on so that I can give back, but I can get into a smaller space with get to really know some board members really well and have a shared experience with them. I love to be able to go to the bigger events and enjoy them. I love to be able to serve the team at the nonprofit and be able to give back to the team that's serving. And then on the fundraising piece, I think a really great experience would be able to go out with the CEO or potentially, a chief advancement officer, but really be alongside them in that experience. Not expected to be fully trained on the first time I went out, but really go with them and see how they engage with donors and what that experience looks like and how they approach that. And that I'm really alongside to be that support person or that someone who's really passionate about the organization and is just supporting these conversations. So in my mind, that would be a really great experience as well.
So you started by saying first thing first is when you join the board to have a good, you understand the expectations, and then orientation is so critical.
Yes.
Does that happen very often?
No, there's a lot leading up to it. Typically, you'll have meetings with people because they desire you to join the board. So you'll have this vetting process and this interview process. So it seems very involved in the beginning. And then finally, when you're asked to serve on the board and you've been sort of accepted, then it's sort of like, okay, here's your first meeting. So in my mind, something that you and I worked on, certainly for one of the boards that I was on, is you actually helped us develop the whole, what does that welcome look like? What does that onboarding look like? What does that first meeting look like? And then also, what does that ongoing engagement look like? And then how are we evaluating how we're doing? And so thanks, to the work that we did with you, that became a much better experience for one of the boards that I was on, because that actually didn't exist. And so now today, that's just a part of the discipline of when somebody is welcomed as a board member. We go through all of that. But I think in general, the other boards that I've been on, it's more you're accepted and then you're at your first meeting. And I remember going to one of my first meetings with one of the boards, and the first meeting was the discussion of a huge capital campaign. And I was like, okay, here we are, first meeting, and we're going to raise all this money. And it's my very first meeting. And so, again, there wasn't, a lot leading up to being accepted, but no real onboarding. And then, then you're fully charged going forward on raising money, so.
I think in our case, too, it was helpful for the organization to have a fresh pair of eyes.
Yes.
People who are in these organizations are overwhelmed. They're exhausted. There's a lot to cover, even just to prepare for a board meeting. And when the board meeting's over, it's like an event's over, and you're like, oh, okay, we don't have to do this for another couple of months. Because in my experience has been that it can often be more of a performance. Like, we're going to have a board meeting. We got to make sure we impress everybody and get all of our reports and make sure we help them see what, that we're doing our very best. And of course, you want to show your best selves, and you want to see the hard, demonstrate that you've done so much and have the board members see that. But really, they're there to help.
Yes.
And I think that we can get caught up in trying to look as best as we can versus be really vulnerable and talk about what's not working well and why we need their help. If I'm a board member and I signed up because I have something to offer.
Yes.
And I would imagine.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Most board members, they want to serve. I think that they have to know how they can serve. I think many boards are very intentional about bringing in all different types of expertise. Most nonprofits are running with maximum, there's not a lot of bandwidth left. Everybody's at capacity. So having a board and a working board that has all kinds of different expertise that can come together and really just enhance some of the processes, some of the ways they go about things, a way to support the team and really broaden and diversify some of the things they're working on is the best case scenario. And I don't think anybody joins a board to say, I'm going to go to 4 meetings a year. I think they join a board because they love the organization, they want to serve. And so I think really having really clear ways that people can serve other than just going to, expected meetings is really valuable, because everybody has different skills and abilities. Everybody has a different capacity in the way they can serve. And so they just don't know what opportunities exist sometimes in order for them to do that.
So let's go back to this dream experience, because I think most people who are listening, they want that. They want to make sure that they engage and that they keep their board members involved, and they want to do the very best they can. But sometimes on a practical level, they don't know exactly what to do. So if you could whisper in the ear of an executive director or a fundraising professional who's working on a committee, what would you tell them to do exactly that they're just completely missing right now?
Yeah, first of all, I think it's asking them for help. I think sometimes the board members just need to know that help is needed. And I think there's so many different ways. Like I just was at a board meeting, and a board member came up with an idea for next gen engagement. And they said, let's go to, one of the wonderful popular places on Bridge Street. Let's have a happy hour. Let's invite sort of next gen leaders and people that may be interested in what we're doing. And let's have appetizers and a happy hour and bring a guest, and they can learn about our organization. We can have community. And I thought that was just a fabulous idea. But it came from a board member, and they were willing to host it. And then the rest of us invited people, and we were able to, it was something that appealed to maybe the younger generation. They loved it because they love engaging that way. And it was just a different idea. Other ways are just, I think, making sure that, number one, you're asking for help. And there's so much creativity and innovation amongst your board members. And I think really just maybe brainstorming about what are some other ways that we could be engaging you, whether you want to host a dinner and invite and have an intimate dinner, or you want to host a business luncheon, or you want to host maybe an on-site visit at your company, but then talk about how you're engaged in the community and with this particular organization. I think there's just so many ideas, but oftentimes you need that creativity, that innovation, that opportunity to really talk about what can we do if we really open the door wider. So,
what is the best board experience you've ever had? It's okay to name an organization if you think they're doing a beautiful job.
Yes. Well, I've been on a lot of different boards. I mean, certainly I've been involved with Mel Trotter Ministries, I would say probably over 20 years. I started as a volunteer, and then I became a board member. And I think that experience has taught me so much personally and professionally. I think that I've grown as a professional being on that board. I've encountered so many different experiences and been able to be a part of so many different experiences that I would have never had the opportunity to do had I not joined that board. So I'm so grateful for it. I served as the board chair. I've served on different roles on the board, served on different committees, been involved on different events, gone out in the trenches to serve our most vulnerable populations in encampments, just served in so many different ways. And I think that for me as a professional and for me personally, it's been an amazing experience. I think certainly I'm on the Pine Rest Foundation board, and that is a different type of experience, but I'm very passionate about mental health. I'm passionate about well-being. And so that's a whole different type of experience, but it's also such a meaningful and purposeful experience. And I'm learning so much from that experience. So I always encourage anyone, even my own employees, is if you're passionate about an organization, become a board member, because yes, you're serving that organization, but you're also growing personally and professionally, because you're going to be put in situations, involved in conversations, having all kinds of different experiences that are only going to help you grow as a human being as well. And so I think any experience that you can be a part of is going to be a challenge to you to grow personally and professionally and give back.
I'm curious on these boards. Are the fundraising professionals usually in the room?
Interestingly enough, oftentimes they're not.
Yeah, that's unfortunate, isn't it?
And we started asking for different team members to come and share and give updates and teach us about what's going on. And I think the more engaged the board can be in that area, the better. I think where I learned the most maybe about fundraising was probably on capital campaign initiatives.
Now you're laughing. Tell me why you're laughing.
Well, certainly I did not feel it's a very daunting experience. First of all, my belief is that giving is such a beautiful act. It's a beautiful act of worship. It's an act of giving back. Giving is a beautiful way to help an organization. So when I was asked to be a part of a capital campaign, certainly I had never been a part of a capital campaign. I didn't know anything. And I was like, well, I'll do it. But just so you know, I'm not an expert. And so, and they said, that's okay. We're going to bring together people that, really are passionate. And one experience I had, we hired a consultant and he taught us every step of the way how to do this, what to do. He kept us on schedule. He helped us to take accountability for everything that we volunteered to do. And it was a really great experience. Another experience that I had was it was sort of like, here you are, and here's your list of people, and go ask them, to support this capital campaign. And there was a real feeling of a gap in that experience because I truly didn't want to do anything wrong, and I also didn't want to make a misstep, and I certainly didn't feel like I had the knowledge to be able to do that live in my first meeting without more sort of coaching and training. And so I think that opportunity to go out, with the CEO to some of those meetings or the chief advancement officer or that type of thing, certainly is a way to set someone up to feel successful. And oftentimes too, being able to talk about at that level to a person that you're assigned to that maybe you've never met before, and now you're asking them to support that organization in a really profound way, and probably in with a large sum of money. That's a big responsibility.
It is. And you know what? You're reminding me of something. This is actually what fundraising professionals deal with. They get put into this position because they have the skills and they have relationships, and then they're like, okay, go do it. And so you might think that, well, the chief advancement person is going to teach me how to do this. And chances are they learned through trial and error. If they hung in there long enough and they got experience and they went to some trainings, it's patchwork at best, but they may have gotten some training here and there. Everybody seems to be learning kind of
by fire.
Yes. It's awful. I mean, that's really the reason I do what I do. I feel like there's no shortage of generous people. There's no shortage of wealth. There's certainly no shortage of need. But there's a shortage of people who've been trained how to inspire generosity in a way that's like sequential, a way that's thoughtful. And so where everybody's thinking that everyone else knows how to do this but us. Yes. And so I'm curious, though, back to this whole point about our fundraisers in the room. One of the things I teach board members and fundraising professionals is when we look for who do we talk to? Who do we find who might be interested in supporting this cause? Well, we have this myth that we often believe that it's rich and famous people we don't know, right? We're like, why don't we go talk to that person, this person, the people who have names on buildings? But the method I teach is called the core circle approach. And it's essentially you start from the inside out. And the people who are the most likely to really want to support your organization are the ones who are giving an incredible amount of time already. And they're the ones who are just near the center. And then you work out from there. Well, if the fundraising professional is not allowed to be in the board meetings, they're not even getting to know who those board members are. They're not hearing what's going on. They're not close to those interior. You learn so much by just being in those meetings and sharing, right?
Yes.
And learning about people. And so I think there's a big miss when they're not invited. But I'm curious, so you've been a board member in a lot of organizations. What kind of relationship do you have with the fundraising professional?
Yes. Well, my personality tends to be a sort of a high influence personality. I'm a business owner, so I love to get to know the different people within the organization. So for me, and I have this sense of responsibility. So if I'm going to be asked to go out and do something like that, so I've actually sought out, the fundraising people and said, hey, I'm going to need some lessons. I'm going to need to know what I'm supposed to do. I don't want to make a misstep. Can you help me? But that's me. Not every board member would do that. But I tend to try to get to know them. Plus, you get to know them through events. If they're having a big fundraising event, typically, the donor relations team or the advancement team are very involved with that. Sometimes I've served side by side. I sign up for the advancement committee when I'm involved in a board because that way I'm really connected to that advancement person. And so that committee is people that want to know what's going on. They want to know how can we help? What are you doing with your advancement efforts? But that's my preference. Not every board member is going to want to be on the advancement committee, but that's a little bit about how I've gotten to know the advancement people. Yeah.
And then when we talk about how do we not only help our board members have a great experience, but ideally as a board member, you're not just helping by asking people, but you're so passionate about the organization. And if we're doing our jobs right, we're equipping you to be a walking commercial, to walking advocate. And so are you, in most cases, being given easy ways to share the message? Are they telling you, here's what to say if you have 30 seconds or 3 minutes or a half hour with somebody? Are you all speaking from the same playbook? I'm just thinking about maybe there's a board you're on and everybody's been trained really well, and in the same way, like making it really easy for you to invite others? Or is it kind of up to you to figure this out, usually?
I think it's a combination of a lot of what you said. I think there is education, but I think sometimes the education is you're being talked to and then you're being asked to remember, sort of what you heard. But there's not, maybe I haven't had formal training, like as in we're going to have a board retreat and we're going to focus completely on inspiring generosity. I've not experienced that. Now, for me, I'm a business owner. I have to go out and build my business every day. So I feel somewhat equipped to do that in that I have to do that for my own business to grow. But I would say that we've had education, but not necessarily, and certainly we have access to information, some statistics, some general knowledge. But I think in general, most people are sharing a story of how they came to know the organization, why they're a part of it, and really coming from their own heart of, I'm inviting you, to join in on supporting this organization. And then a little bit through some of the education they have had, they can maybe add in a few layers of
figure it out on your own.
Yes, a little bit.
But you did say you wish there was kind of more, I don't know, role playing maybe?
Yes.
What else would be helpful?
Yeah, I think not just teaching, but actually, or education, but actually focusing in areas of role playing and I mean, you did that for us. I invited you in to do a little bit of that with Mel Trotter, but that was really the first time that maybe we had formal, sort of training like that. Mm-hmm. I think at a board retreat, if there was a part of it we could do that's devoted to how to be really effective, and really equipping board members to do that more effectively, I think that would be good. They're still going to talk from their own place of passion, but it's just confidence. I think it's confidence. Anything that can help build confidence. And then I also think, maybe some accountability built into it. Like, what are you going to commit to? And what can we expect? Other than, okay, everyone, go out and do this, but there's no real measurement of anybody's real activity, so that's what I would say.
And just think if there was the potential.
Right.
It's just missed potential.
Yeah, I think so. Because you have all the ingredients. You have people at the table that obviously have said, I love this organization, obviously want to share why they do. And most of the time have relationships all over. I mean, everybody has relationships with business people, with community members, with friends, family, and everything else. So you've got all the ingredients there. I think it's just more, how do we take that and really, do something significant with it?
I'm going to switch gears here for a minute and talk about some of the things that we do, we think is really well-meaning. But again, we maybe unintentionally set us up to fail. Let's say you have a magic wand and you could just erase one well-meaning thing that boards are told about fundraising. What would you get rid of first?
Yes, that's a great question, actually. I think the one well-meaning thing would be go out and do something, but not have any real formula to be successful. I think I really feel like it's the well-meaning thing of, we think you're set up to succeed and we think you're equipped from the standpoint of maybe the team, but then there's a gap in between, and then you have board members on the other side going, I'm not actually feeling that way. But there's this in-between stage where nobody's really saying anything, and that's, I think, where things fall.
Mm-hmm. So we've talked about the best experience that you've had. What is one of the worst experiences you've had on the board? Tell me a story.
Well, I can tell you one that comes to mind. Certainly, I was asked to be on a board and actually to serve in a certain specialty, because they were focusing on something that I had an expertise in. So they wanted me to join the board and maybe help them to move along just a certain initiative that they had. So I joined the board, but it was not a welcoming experience whatsoever. It was a group of people that had been together for a long time, and there was no real onboarding. It was my first meeting, and there was no welcome. There was no, and we have Janis here, and we're welcoming her for her first meeting, and let's all get to know each other, and let's get to know, why Janis is joining us. And there was no ever any onboarding. There was never any, I never felt connected at all.
Not even an introduction.
No. And then it was clear that it was just going to be a little bit of the same old thing that we'd always done. And so I was asking, me, Miss, Initiative, I was like, well, how can I serve and what can I do? And there was never any engagement on any of that. And I even went out for lunch with the chief engagement officer or fundraiser or whatever. And they sort of were like, well, we don't really do that. We're sort of set with, how things are going. And so really, I never really I tried to be engaged, tried to help, but I was never invited in to really help. And so,
How disappointing.
yeah, it was an interesting experience. I was also the only woman on the board, and that was an interesting experience for me as well. Just again, I was thinking that maybe maybe people didn't know what to do with me. I wasn't sure. It was just it was really not. The work that they were doing was wonderful. I understood it, but we never got to the reason why I was actually there and asked to be on it. It never materialized throughout the experience, and so yeah, I just ended up, making a decision that probably this isn't the best place for me to serve, because I'm not really being asked to really engage or help or and I'm not really getting much out of it myself, which I know is a terrible thing to say, because I know that I'm responsible for getting things out of
Yeah, but your time's valuable.
Yeah.
It's like, it sounds to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds to me like there's just a lot of unsaid, a lot of things that are unspoken. Maybe people are afraid to get real and vulnerable.
Yes. It was very, I think there was some dynamics there that maybe I wasn't in the know of.
Okay.
And so it always felt a little strained, and I was trying to figure out, like, what is actually going on here. And
I think that happens a lot, actually.
yeah, so I definitely tried to have, have a positive attitude towards things, but I just was feeling like I'm not going to add any value to this dynamic or this situation, and certainly if I'm going to serve somewhere, I want to be able to add some value. But I felt like maybe, and it just felt like a mismatch. It felt like maybe I'm not the person you need as a board member for this organization. And so it no hurt feelings. I just felt like I was in a mismatch.
So how much of that was the fact that you were the only woman?
Could have been. It could
Does
have
that
been.
happen a lot? Are boards mostly made up of men?
I think they're getting better.
What's the ratio typically?
I think people are trying to be, I think certainly CEOs and executive directors are trying to be very intentional about that, because I think they want to have a representation, certainly of the community they serving on the board. And I do think that we all know that the most innovative organizations have a lot of different voices at the table. And so top performing organizations have the most diverse voices. And so I think that executive directors, where that's a priority, and are really being intentional about that. We also know that it's important to have different skill sets, and it's important to have different generations and different experiences. So I think that's about leadership, though. I think that's definitely about the executive director and the CEO working with the board chair and working with the board to make sure that you have a very intentional process to be inviting all kinds of different voices. I think it's changing. I think some organizations also are really forming that next gen board to give young people an experience of if they eventually want to serve on a board, what would that look like? So there's several organizations that I know that are really being intentional about forming that and having that sort of next gen board work on some initiatives, understand the formation of a board, understand different roles and responsibilities within a board, but also work on a project and then engage with the actual board as well. So I think there's some really intentional things that are being done, but we still have a long ways to go.
So you know how we were talking about kind of awkward, the things that are not being said, like the elephant in the room. I want to talk about boards and giving, because I often hear nonprofit leaders and fundraising professionals complaining about their boards. Every time we talk about end of year giving's coming, and there's more hinting and walking around, kind of tiptoeing around the subject. What has been your experience when it comes to end of year giving? And I mean, as a board chair, have you been involved in this, in planning for that?
I think where I've been involved as the board chair is it's the end of the year, and I'm hearing from, maybe the CEO, hey, we've got some board members that haven't given, and you're going to need, as the board chair, to make sure that everybody knows loud and clear that, we need 100% of the board to give. And when you said, and I think when you're talking that way in this asking, or you're almost guilting people into, hey, you haven't given, you need to give, like that whole dynamic is just not a really great feeling. And as opposed to that inviting people to give is just has such a whole different experience with it. But yes, I've been in situations where, when you're promising your donors that 100% of your board members give, and you know that we have a few people lagging, then typically as the board chair, I've been the person delivering that message in a board meeting saying, hey,
pony up.
But you're not naming names, but then at the same time, that maybe it's 80% have and there's only 20% that haven't. And so it's just feels like there's a better way to go about doing that. And in my mind, it might be more of a one-on-one conversation because maybe it slips somebody's mind, or potentially maybe somebody has a bigger gift planned and they just haven't communicated it. Or, I think no board member would have a problem with someone saying, hey, are you planning on giving? We invite you to do that. We'd love your year-end gift. But in my mind, that's not a public sort of awkward ask. That's more of a one-on-one conversation. And so I loved when you said, invite people. That feels so good. And I feel that it doesn't put anybody on the defensive. It just is a beautiful reminder. And then if there is an issue, then in my mind, that's more of a one-on-one issue or conversation with someone. So
there's a couple things that are bubbling up in my mind. First of all, words do matter. Words matter a lot.
Yes.
In fact, I teach people to completely use different words. I tell my students, let's promise to retire certain words and replace them with other words. Like, I don't use the word ask, it's invite. I don't even like the word campaigns. Would rather just call them initiatives. We certainly shouldn't be calling people donors.
Yes.
I'd much rather call them giving partners or supporters or contributors, anything but donors. But, we just get used to using these terms.
Yes.
Sometimes it's hard to swap those out. But after a while, that's something that just, you change the language, it changes the atmosphere, it changes the feelings. And back to this board member or this board meeting towards the end of the year. So you have this elephant in the room where people are feeling it, they're thinking about it, but they're not really talking about it. Have you had an experience where it's been handled really well? Or is it always awkward and uncomfortable?
Well, the really well experience I've had is where someone says 100% of you have given, and we're just so excited, and thank you so much for all of your generosity, and we just appreciate it so much. But there's another opportunity for you to be able to do that now. So it just never seems, not that people don't want to be generous, but sometimes it seems like maybe it's never enough, But I guess the measurement probably for the advancement team, or maybe even the CEO, is that success means that 100% of people on the board have given. But I wonder how much untapped potential, because we're looking at it through traditional eyes. And I think that knowing your expertise and knowing how you approach things is that, yes, that might be the scorecard, but how much was left? How many conversations weren't had? How many opportunities were missed for those board members, or to be able to actually engage in even more profound ways than they did? And I think sometimes it's funny, sometimes people are worried about inviting people into certain things because maybe they thought, well, they've given and maybe I shouldn't invite them again to give. And it's funny, one of the board chairs on a board that I was just in, he just called me up and said, hey, I need you to do this. Would you be willing to do it? And it was really random. and he wanted to have a dinner before the board event. It was a big annual meeting, and it was a very important meeting. And he said, I'd like to get everybody together in community and have a really nice casual, just let's get to know each other. Let's just have a beautiful social evening before this big annual meeting that was going to be announcing quite a bit of things that were going to be happening and changing. But he just called me up and said, hey, I was thinking maybe you could just underwrite that dinner. and I was like, I can do that. And so it was
so out of the blue.
It was so out of the blue, but I was like, I can do that. And it was something they'd never done before. But I was like, yeah, I can help. And so I was thinking to myself, what if he didn't ask me? What if he didn't invite me to do that? Then I guess maybe somebody else would have, or maybe they would have had to absorb that themselves. But it actually brought me so much joy to be able to do that. And it was really a blessing for me to be able to participate in a different way. And everybody had a wonderful time, and it was something we'd never done before.
Yeah, but you're so open, and you're already so primed. Like, that wouldn't have landed well with everybody.
Right.
Someone else might have been like, "What the heck?" Like, you don't.
Yes.
I think the fact that it's random just shares that it just kind of highlights the fact that fundraising is about getting money from people so that we can accomplish something, and getting that money from people it's very much about who can we go to get money from. I mean, that's what fundraising is. So no wonder most board members will say, like, I'll do anything but fundraising.
Yes.
But really, when we inspire generosity, it's not about just how can we get money from people. It's about how can we create meaningful giving experiences. We care just as much about the giver and that experience as we do the gift itself. And so fortunately, that was a great giving experience for you, but it certainly took you by surprise. It wasn't the most thoughtful way to go about it. But I think that if we could just help people make the shift and say, what would it look like? I mean, if somebody can just make a random gift, what would it look like if it was really thoughtful? What if it was a private conversation with someone who really knew you well, and you could say, gosh, now with a little time, who else could we invite into this? What else could we plan? But it's often, I don't know, it's just more transactional.
Yeah.
I think
there's so much potential. I think there's a lot on the invitation space of asking people if they could sit down with them and just talk about what their goals are, and also where they would like to be generous with the organization. And oftentimes there's not a thoughtful meeting that goes with that. It's just sort of an expectation. And I think people want to have that type of conversation, and they want to have it be a very thoughtful conversation. And I think not enough of those are happening. I think it is transactional. And I think that if people really sat down together and really linked arms together and said, hey, what do you think we can do this year together?
Yeah.
And I just want to have a conversation about that. No agenda as far as I think you should do this or this, because I do think that sometimes we never even get the opportunity to be able to even strategize, map it out, be creative. It's just more, this is what we need from you. And so this is
not very inspiring.
Yes.
Is it?
And I think that when you can be inspired and be a part of something inspiring, it really does make a difference. And I think business people are looking to partner with organizations, but oftentimes they're sort of a whole mixed group. Even though nonprofit organizations want to partner with business, they just also don't quite know how to do that well. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity, because business owners know that businesses that are involved in the community have more engagement with their employees, have better retention, and employees want to work for a company that's involved in the community. So we know all those things, but again, we don't quite have the the structure to really be able to do some really great things with businesses. And we all know that our community is our ultimate customer, that we want our communities to be strong and we want to be able to give back to our communities. But again, there's this big disconnect between what a business owner would like to do and what a nonprofit or community organization needs. And if they're fortunate enough to be on a board, then maybe they know that. But in general, everybody's busy. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity in that area as well. But the team at the nonprofit would have to be so thoughtful about that conversation.
Yes.
They would have to be willing, to set up a time to really get to know about the business and the desires of the leadership and really work side by side with them to work together to do something.
To co-create.
And that right there doesn't happen very often.
But that's what makes this work fun and beautiful and soulful.
Yes.
That's what, if you do it that way, where you don't come to people with a request, but you come with curiosity.
Yes.
And you say, I'm trying to find out, what would you like to accomplish with your philanthropic dollars? Or what would you like to accomplish with these sponsorship dollars that I know you need for marketing? Or what would you like to accomplish with your money that would be meaningful to you? If that aligns with what we're doing, well, then let's partner up and let's talk about how can we make this better for our attendees or for our clients, or how can we make this actually help you do more business as a result too, and everybody wins instead of this one-sided request.
Yes.
And it does take more time and it takes more thoughtfulness, but that's what makes this work beautiful. And it doesn't make it, it's really not complicated. It's very simple. It gets complicated when we are guessing what people want to do. We're guessing how much we should ask for. It's not complicated when you say, gosh, what feels right for you, given your financial circumstances? Would you even consider supporting this initiative in this amount, in this range, and having conversations about what if? It's about putting your guard down. I think it's about being vulnerable.
Yes. It's funny. My neighbor was just telling me a story that he's retired, both him and his wife, but he had a very high responsibility job before he retired. But he was telling me, he said, I know you're on boards and, you're still in business. So, we met at the mailbox, and he said, I received a call today and it was so wonderful. And I said, oh, what happened? And he said, I received a call I gave a small donation to a nonprofit. And he said, but I got a personal phone call from someone from that organization thanking me for my donation and making sure that they knew that they received it and how grateful they were for it. And I said, wow, how did that make you feel? And he said, I just was so thankful because number one, they acknowledged they received it. I've never received a thank you call for a donation before, like a person. Maybe I got something in a donation confirmation. Maybe I got a thank you letter, but someone picked up the phone and called me and said thank you, and I said, well, I'm so glad that they did that. And he said, you know what? I'm going to be giving to them regularly now because that's the first place that's ever actually called me and said, thank you. And it felt so genuine from the person on the other end of the phone. And we had a great conversation. I learned a little bit more about the organization and I could tell that they appreciated my donation. And I was like, that's not that hard.
Have you as a board member ever been asked to make thank you calls?
I have, but the funny thing is, there was not a follow through.
Oh, shoot.
Yes.
Because that's an easy way for a board member
I think it's
to
a
help.
great idea, but not, it was always like an idea, but then it never actually came to.
It takes a little bit of, organization and systemizing. But when you as a board member, some people I think board members tend to be either like really overly confident, like, oh, I've been fundraising forever, I can do it. And then they're overbearing sometimes and just go right to randomly asking people. Or you have the other extreme where they're like, don't ask me to fundraise. I'll do anything but that. In which case, asking them to make thank you calls.
I think it's a great idea.
It's part of raising, it inspires people.
Yes.
Look at how that happened.
Yes.
So easy ways. What are other easy ways that board members can help that are not just asking people for money? How else could a board member help? You already mentioned hosting an event.
Yes.
What
I
are
think
some other ways?
hosting an event, I think, volunteering alongside the team, because when you have an experience with the team, then you're able to talk about that experience. I've had a lot of different experiences with the team that I would have never had I not done that. But that story that I can tell from that experience has you can tell that story over and over again, and people are like, wow, I can't believe you did that. Yeah. But it's an amazing story. So I think some of the ways where I've seen the board members have the most engagement and the most amazing storytelling that came out of it was when they actually went and alongside what that nonprofit does and actually worked with some of the team members and did it. Some of the other ways are attending, graduations or family events or chapel services or volunteer events or serving meals to, if they have a team member sort of celebration, is showing up for that. But just serving, serving is a great way for board members to be able to get to know the organization, get to know the team, see the heart of the organization. And I think it's wherever that board member feels like that gives them energy, that energizes them too. They want to be energized, And so, but I think when they get involved that way, storytelling is automatically comes out of it. And those are the greatest stories that I've heard. I went and worked in the kitchen, and you're not going to believe we serve 400 meals a day. I don't know if you guys knew that. And it's like, well, we could have said that over and over and over again. But now you've actually experienced it. Or even for myself, spending a day going out with the team to the encampments, even understanding that and understanding that some people choose maybe not to come into shelter, but they choose to live outside, away from shelter. They're experiencing homelessness. They have a whole community that is out there in our community. And had I not gone with the team to experience that, I would have never known what that really is like. And I actually have greater compassion and empathy for why some people might choose that, or what they're having to do on a daily basis just to be able to survive until they do receive housing. And so just a lot of those type of experiences, it could be for any organization, in the ways they serve. But.
So it sounds like the best way to help a board member help your organization is to get them up close and personal, if that's what they want.
Yes.
Again, it's all about getting to know the board member and finding out what do they want their board experience to look like.
Yes.
Because someone else may say, I don't really want to do it that way. I don't want to do it the way Janis is suggesting. Yeah. This is how I want to help.
Yes.
So it's all personalized.
Yes.
But I do believe that, when there's nothing, they say a picture is 1,000 words, right? And an experience, when you have an experience that moves you, you're going to tell people about it. And my hope is that people will have more joyful giving experiences that result from these kinds of frontline experiences. And those giving experiences, when someone has a beautiful giving experience, they can't help but share it.
Yes.
And that's contagious. It really is. And I just want to say as we wrap up that you lead by example. And you're one of the women that I really look up to, because not only are you a professional business owner who has been in it for the long haul, you've gone through thick and thin, and you've grown quite a remarkable business. But you also take time each and every week to serve somewhere, and I know your employees are involved in these nonprofits too. You do so much for the community, and that is something I really admire.
Oh, thank you. I mean, ultimately, we really truly believe that our community, the way to make it stronger, a strong community, is a healthy community, and individuals and families, you know, uh, we can help. And I think that working alongside organizations, I mean, especially in West Michigan, there's no lack of opportunities to be able to serve. But I also think that as a community, we all need help, and it's an opportunity to be able to do that. And I think it also, there's a business case for it, certainly. There's a personal case for it. But in general, it's the right thing to do. And as a business owner, it's definitely the right thing to do, because ultimately we are here to serve our community. And and the work that you're doing as well in helping us to understand how to inspire generosity, it's like you're helping us to make sense of something that we didn't quite, we knew a sort of a structure, or we knew, what it was called, but being able to look at it through the lens that you're helping us to see it makes so much sense. So I appreciate you so much, because I do think there's tremendous amounts of people that really want to be generous. They need to be connected to that. And they also need to be invited to be able to take part in it. So I'm excited for what you're doing, and excited for these relationships that are going to grow. And I do think that we were born to be generous in so many different ways. And I think that what you're doing is going to help us to be able to do that even better. So thank you, Joanna.
Thank you. I'm Joanna Hogan, and this is Inspire Generosity. If this episode meant something to you, please like and subscribe, and stay tuned for the next episode.